Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video. I know it's been a heckin' long time as always, but we've got a new series of Doctor Who, so I am back to share all of my thoughts on it. So yes, I felt like I've got to come back for this. I know I've been really irregular with videos recently, and that's probably going to continue. I can't promise it's going to be amazing, but I felt like with a new series of Doctor Who, I've got to come back and give some thoughts, share some, reviews and discussion about the episodes as we go through the series. I was thinking back to when I first started doing reviews for Doctor Who episodes, and I think the first one I made kind of off the back of transmission was Return of Dr. Mysterio in December 2016. So I can't believe I've been doing Doctor Who reviews on YouTube for nearly 8 years. That's absolutely insane. Probably don't go and check that one out because it's probably awful because it was such a long time ago. I was way younger and all of that. But I'm so glad to be coming back again to discuss a brand new series, a brand new era of Doctor Who getting started with a slightly interesting story in Space Babies. So yes, we'll get stuck straight into it. I must confess, I did not watch this episode at midnight. I did not feel the desire to stay up till midnight to watch these episodes. I just felt I would enjoy the episodes more if I could watch them when I wake up on Saturday morning. Didn't wait till transmission on BBC One, but I watched them about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And, I think that part of it was thoroughly enjoyable. But yes, Space Babies. I think this is probably the episode based on the kind of episode previews and synopsis and the little hints we'd had about episodes before this series began. Space Babies was probably the one I was least excited for. Just nothing about it sounded particularly big, amazing, groundbreaking, different, unique. Just it felt like that it was going to be pretty bog standard Doctor Who, and kind of unfortunately, I think that's what we got really. I mentioned this in the podcast that I've done about this episode, but I just find with Doctor Who episodes that you usually get a feeling when you're watching it. It's not even necessarily like a tangible, you can put into words what you're feeling. You just kind of either feel good or feel bad as you're going through an episode, and you can't really explain it. I find it so weird. And as I was watching this episode, I just had a bad feeling. It just didn't feel good as I was watching it. It was kind of okay for the first 10 minutes, and then the more and more we got into the Space Baby stuff, I just was like, this just isn't really very good. And one of the most confusing things for me is, well, maybe I have an explanation for it, but one of the confusing things to me is why they chose this episode as the big series opener episode, to launch the new series on Disney Plus and all of this with Space Babies just seems like a really poor decision. And I think part of it must be to do with the original plan of basically having this series air directly a week after the Church on Ruby Road. So almost like the Church on Ruby Road is episode 1 of this series, and then Space Babies would be episode 2. Now, I think if this was sitting in the episode 2 slot, the Beast Below slot, or the Ghost Monument slot, or, that kind of, we have the big, exciting introductory episode, and then we go into a more bog standard space sci-fi Doctor Who episode. That's what Space Babies felt like, but I think having that kind of 4 or 5 month gap between the two episodes just made it feel kind of a weird place to start a whole new series and era, essentially. So yeah, straight off the bat, from that perspective, I was a little bit confused. I think it felt so kind of jarringly obvious when we literally start this episode where the Church on Ruby Road ended. Like that, if that's not showing you these episodes were meant to kind of be together and not 5 months apart, I don't know what it is. You sort of, yeah, it didn't even kind of recap what happened. It was just like, oh, okay, here's the last scene. Ruby's on the TARDIS now, off we go. And it felt like so much of this episode was just kind of ticking off the boxes of giving explanation quickly, fast, let's get this stuff out of the way so we can move on with adventures. I thought it was quite jarring to see that the whole timeless child, Doctor's adopted, all of Gallifrey is destroyed, the Time Lords are dead, all of that, thrown in the first 5 minutes, a name drop of the Rani, obviously I'm a fan, so it's kind of fun and cool, but I was like, why are you doing this in, the first 5 minutes of the series? How is this really gonna engage that brand new audience when you're just spouting a load of exposition from past episodes at the audience? I found that a very, very odd choice, and I think it felt like that was all being crammed in throughout this story. We had the very repetitive scene from the end of the world of Ruby phoning her mum, having the phone zapped so it could phone from the far future, phoning her mum back in the past, and all of this. It was literally blow for blow the same as the scene in the end of the world. So I thought that was quite jarring. Particularly as well, I felt the scene where the Ruby gets the TARDIS key at the end of this episode felt just completely wrong. Like, it felt unearned. It didn't feel like the right thing to it just felt so quick. It was like out of nowhere. Okay, we've had one adventure. Cool, great. Have a TARDIS key. Like, with Martha, it took like 6-7 episodes to get to that point. So I found that really, again, just quite jarring. Like, they were trying to rush through kind of all the explainers they needed to do. We explained about the chameleon circuit of the TARDIS being broken. We explained about the sort of TARDIS translation matrix. All of these different things. It was like, quick, tick that box, tick that box, tick that box. And just kind of rushing through it all to try and not even give us a particularly great story. So I should probably at least give you some things that I enjoyed about this episode, because I feel like I've been very negative so far. And unfortunately, I think my overall opinion is pretty negative of this story. I did enjoy some of the sort of early scenes where we see the Doctor and Ruby visit the dinosaurs and Ruby momentarily becoming an alien. Like, that stuff was quite fun and a little bit silly, but it's still good fun. I thought the kind of set design of the space station looked really, really good. There was that initial mystery of what this bogeyman creature was, and obviously getting introduced to all the space babies. I've seen people complaining about the CGI, the mouths on the space baby, and I was real confused. Like, yeah, it probably wasn't very good, but I know Disney have put loads of money into this now, but who are you really watching Doctor Who for great special effects? Like, it's almost a signature trait of the show is that it's had bad special effects for most of its history. Yeah, sure, they're getting better now and there's a lot of money in it, but it really didn't bother me at all, didn't take me out of the story at all that that it wasn't always perfectly synced up or looked perfectly right. Yeah, I don't know, that just didn't faze me in the slightest. It was absolutely fine. With the Doctor and Ruby, I'm kind of conflicted and confused about how I feel. Like, they are both naturally really, really likeable characters. They're so much fun on screen, and that's brilliant and really, really enjoyable. But it also feels like every single scene is kind of one of them getting overexcited to the other one about something and getting really all loud and shouty and excited. And then, like, kind of, okay, cut to the next scene. Oh, we'll build up, and the space babies, whoa. It's like, it's great to have high energy. I like that. But it just feels like they need a few more kind of quiet, sort of slow moments. And I'm hoping that in the rest of the series, we're going to see more of that. But across both of these first two episodes, really, I felt like that was a little bit missing. And so, like, and the fact that kind of Ruby just goes along with, like, literally everything. Like, where are the days of Rose or Clara or Bill or whoever, like, really questioning the Doctor, questioning his decisions, questioning all these crazy things that's happening around them? It feels like Ruby's just totally like, okay, cool, sounds great, let's just do it, yeah, perfect. Like, she doesn't question anything, and I feel like you want someone who challenges the Doctor a little bit more. Ruby's just very much just going along with it. And I know there is a whole, we know there's an arc here. We know there's something significant going on with Ruby. Is this a whole Series 7B Clara situation where she doesn't really have any character because she's a plot device? It feels like it could go that way, and I feel like she doesn't really have that much yet. Obviously, we've got that grounding of her backstory, of the fact that she's adopted. We meet her adopted mother and grandmother, and we've seen that family bit, and that's really good. But actually establishing her character, kind of, how would we describe that? I don't know, guys, in the comments, how would you kind of describe Ruby's character based on these first two episodes? Because I don't think we see in either story her really significantly influencing the plot or the resolution, or really having that moment as a companion like we see with Rose in Rose, where she comes and saves the day. We just haven't really seen any of that yet, and I feel like that's such an integral part of Doctor Who. It's something that was really lacking in the Chris Chibnall era, and obviously with generally character development and companion development and the relationship between them and the Doctor and all of it was definitely lacking in the Chibnall era. And I think it's going in the right direction here, but I feel like there's still more work to be done to kind of round Ruby as a character and give her a bit more sort of meat and depth, and a bit more depth to the relationship as well. So yeah, I think I'm just hoping to see more of the Doctor and Ruby's character kind of explored through the rest of these episodes, because so far they're fun, they're enjoyable to watch, absolutely, and probably more enjoyable than what we saw during the Chris Chibnall era, but I don't feel like we've really got that depth yet. There's a few nice moments here and there, but I feel like I want a bit more from that. The actual plot of Space Babies, I definitely wasn't really that fussed about. It's kind of like, it boils down to, there's some abandoned babies on a spaceship with a monster underground and all they need to do is stop the monster, but actually they don't. They just kind of realise the monster isn't really that bad or something. And then let's use farts and poo to move the space station back to a baby farm to save them and look after them. Like, it's a bit silly. I just find it surprising that that's what they decided to go with for the opening episode of the series, when there's probably surely so many great ideas out there. I'm really not sure this is the right one to start with. And it just felt like it was so kind of surface level, the real depth of this story and the understanding of the plot and things like that, because there was this whole kind of metaphor and idea portrayed of having all these babies, not allowing the babies not to be born, but then having nobody to look after the babies. And obviously there's a whole metaphor in that wasn't explored at all. It was just kind of mentioned and then, oh, on we go. And then the whole bogeyman, like, what is he? Okay, we know he's made out of snot, great. And he was developed by the like computer system, essentially, because it all became part of a story, is kind of the idea. And okay, we have this big dramatic moment where the Doctor saves the bogeyman, but then we get nothing. We know nothing. Like, what's he doing now? Like, is he still running around screaming, scaring people down in the below decks? Is he going to be released? What does he want? We don't know anything about the creature. Like, it just feels like none of this stuff was even remotely resolved or like cared about. And in terms of the plot, it's just kind of all a bit eye candy, scary monster, generic scary monster, all dramatic saving the day moment. Okay, now we're moving on. Like, I don't know. It just all felt really a little bit like, yeah, it was just lacking any real depth to this story at all. And maybe it was just the setting of this story, but I couldn't help but get very, very slight Saranga Conundrum vibes from this story. And that is a red flag, if anything is, that it's not a good story if you're thinking about the Saranga Conundrum when you're watching this. So that was not a great moment for me. And it was just like the lack of any developed characters as well. Literally, Nanny was the only other adult character in this story. And even she was a pretty surface level character. She's there to kind of look after the space babies, but she's just trying to keep them going and look after them a little bit. And oh, okay, and now, okay, the Doctor's come and saved the day. Now let's move on to the baby farm and off we go. Like, it just, I don't know, it all just felt a little bit lacking. And that's a shame because it's the opening episode of the series and it felt like none of that was really there. One of the things I did find sort of enjoyable and intriguing with this story was how they initially started to approach the arc of the series. That very interesting scene where we sort of see the Doctor flashbacking memory of him being at the church because of what we saw in the Christmas special. And that interesting thing of the idea that the memory changed in some way to now have this, what's presumably Ruby's mother, pointing at the Doctor rather than just walking past. So the Doctor's like become part of that event in some way. I feel like that's going to cause bad things. That really, really cool effect of like the snow appearing in the room and like the snow is the kind of defining indicator of that memory, that moment and all of it. And that's all, I find that really, really interesting and intriguing to try and figure out where's that all going, what's that all about. As I say, it just feels like there's something that's not quite right about Ruby, about who she is, about what the mystery is behind her as a character. I thought it was interesting that we saw that DNA scanning scene. It felt very Series 6, Matt Smith's Doctor scanning Amy and not understanding, why is she pregnant, why is she not, what's going on here. Maybe Ruby's actually a flesh avatar. Maybe that's what it's all about, and actually she's not really there. We're going to do that all over again. I don't know, but I just thought that was quite intriguing. And yeah, it definitely feels like there's a well set up arc for this series and a narrative that's going to really kind of push through to a conclusion by the finale, but probably also extend into that second season. I think because Russell's kind of plotting so far in advance with the series, like we know they've basically filmed the second season, he's already thinking about the third season right now. So those sort of plot threads can be really planned so far in advance, whereas as much as I love Stephen Moffat, often it felt like things were kind of added in at the last minute or a bit retrospectively trying to pull things together and stuff like that, whereas it just feels like this is all going to really build very naturally within the stories, and I'm very, I'm here for that. So yeah, overall, it's sad to say it, but I don't think Space Babies is the sort of story I'm going to be rushing to rewatch anytime soon. I'm pretty sure by the end of this series, most people are going to put it at the bottom of the list. I just can't. It just doesn't really have anything going for it as a good story. Like, it doesn't do anything different or experimental. Yes, we get another episode of the Doctor and Ruby solidifying that relationship, and that's cool and that's fun, but as I say, there's not necessarily that much depth in it yet. It's just kind of surface level excitement and nothing much else. The plot is really average and there's not really anything going for it. So it was just a bit of a shame and a bit sort of underwhelming a start to the series. I think it can't be denied. But guys, maybe you massively disagree with me, so do let me know in the comments below if you completely just think, Elliot, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about. I love this story. Please do tell me in the comments below. I would love to hear all of your thoughts about this story. But guys, I will be back later this week to review The Devil's Cord as well. I'll also be covering off that story and hopefully get going with weekly reviews of episodes at the very least, and maybe some other videos here and there as well about the series. But that is just about it for this video, guys. Do remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new here to be able to check out all my upcoming content. There's also So many videos in the past you can go and check out if you're interested in any of the recent eras of the show. I've done a whole load of videos on them, so do go and check those out. But for me, from this video, that's just about it, and I'll see you again very soon for a brand new video. But until then, it's goodbye.